More than $21 million is coming to the Septima P Improvement Project. Today, I talk one-on-one with Charleston City Councilman Jason Sakran for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Councilman Jason Sakran, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
It is nice to be back. I think this is number 3 or 4, maybe. I'm not sure, but it's nice to be back. Nice to see you.
Likewise. Who is Jason Sakran now that you are a Charleston City Councilman, but also you are a business owner, entrepreneur, a husband, and a father?
Well, I'm all of those, and different hats at different times. I think first and foremost, particularly over the past several months, obviously the City Council job has been out in the forefront. I'm very proud of the past 6 months, from being elected from January till today. I've talked to other new City Council members, and who would have thunk, when we were running for these seats, that we would experience what we've experienced here in Charleston the past couple months. So, as a City Council person, it's been an awesome and interesting several months. So that's been my hat for the past couple months, but obviously I'm also a dad and a husband. So I've been home with the kids as much as possible, as we've all been our stay-at-home orders, right, trying to figure out what we're going to do for the school year next year. And as a husband, I'm trying to be there for my wife, but it's been actually good. And I will say to anyone listening, there's been some good that's come out of this. It's really allowed me an opportunity to kind of slow down a little bit and see things a little bit of a slower pace for my family, in particular my kids. So, just being home with them and seeing them throughout the day and for longer extended periods has been great. So kind of glass half full for some of this. And
your dog too.
Yeah, I got a crazy dog. That was my wife's purchase, Oh, I didn't want to add any more craziness to the mix.
He was there during my last interview.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Well, let me turn over to some developing news. As you know, the South Carolina Transportation Infrastructure Bank approved the City of Charleston's application for the Septima Clark Drainage and Transportation Improvement Project. Let me ask you this, Councilman. How much money was actually needed for Phase 5?
Phase 5, I've got that right here. I mean, the total project cost was about $197 million for the entire project. We are finished, I believe, Phase 1, 2, and 3. 3 is scheduled to be finished, I believe, July of this year. So we're almost finished with Phase 3. You were asking about the project cost for Phase 3 or Phase 5?
Oh, Phase 5.
Sure. Phase 5 total cost was estimated to be about $36.4 million for Phase 5. Now that's not scheduled to be done till December 2023. So those first 3 phases of the Spring Fishburne project, or the Septima P Clark project, has been completed. A lot of that was, a lot of drainage and infrastructure work. We'll start seeing a lot more of the major work. Well, major work has been done, particularly in Phase 3 with some tunneling. But we'll start seeing a lot more of the major work in terms of seeing some modifications and improvements as we enter into Phase 4 and obviously Phase 5 for the end of that project, which is scheduled, like I said, for December 2023. So we're not too far away. And this project is a major project. It encompasses about 20% of the peninsula and will certainly benefit a large portion of the peninsula, particularly the medical district. So the news that we heard yesterday about the infrastructure bank allowing and giving us an additional $21.5 million, that's great news for not just that project, but that's going to allow us to reallocate the funds that we had dedicated to the project for other flooding needs across the peninsula and into other parts of the city of Charleston, James Island, West Ashley, and some of those outside areas. So that's a great win for everybody, for the city, and for addressing some of our flooding concerns.
You talked earlier about those modifications and improvements for Phase 3. What are the modification improvements that are needed for Phase 5?
Phase 5 basically is, right now the part of Phase 3 is they dug these. If you drive down 17, you'll see these big kind of tunnels that are getting built. Phase 5 is basically going to include 3 main pumps, and of those main pumps, each one of them is basically going to be able to push out 120,000 gallons per minute. So that's going to increase our capacity tenfold in terms of getting water moved off the peninsula. So, and I know folks, that are concerned, and I hear their concerns. And, I just met with several of my constituents about 2 or 3 weeks ago with our stormwater director, because they have some concerns about, flooding, obviously, in the downtown areas. And I just want to let those folks know that we're working on that. But this project in particular will have cascading effects around the area of Spring and Fishburne, helping some of those neighborhoods around there. Certainly not going to do much for some of the Wagner Terrace and North Central, but some of the West Side should see some benefit from some of the ancillary effects of the project. So it's a big project, and we should start seeing some real benefits in the next couple of years.
And what are those?
It's been going. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry for the delay.
It's all right.
And what exactly are going to be those effects?
Well, like I said, the flow rate's going to increase by tenfold. Those pumps are going to be able to generate 120,000 gallons per minute. So just the ability, when we've got these big rain flood events in that particular area, as we know in the medical district, that water tends to stay for hours,
right.
And sometimes half day, full day. Right. My understanding is based on the science and what this is going to do. That is going to be able to remove and move water fairly quickly, allowing for transportation of vehicles to get in, and basically easier access into the hospital facilities that are around that area.
Exactly right. And, obviously, in the press release, they said this: while it didn't receive funding during this round of approvals, the city's application for the low barrier seawall is still eligible for funding later this year, or can be resubmitted in 2021. Mm-hmm. What's that ideal funding for the seawall?
Those numbers are all over the place for the most part, Quintin. And I would just say, we've got a public engagement we started, I believe, with the Army Corps of Engineers. I believe that phase, that comment period ended, but it's my understanding that they're going to reopen that comment period again. So, I could sit here and guess at what the estimates are going to be today, but my guess is that those numbers could change based on the scope of the work and based on the final design. So I just want to let folks know that are listening, that design of that seawall is not complete. It's not finalized. So really, we do need your input into the process. So I would encourage everyone to go to the city website, look for the links for the wall, and provide your input. It's there. I know the Army Corps of Engineers is looking for your input. So we need it. And I've been trying to share as much of this with my constituents in West Ashley as well as downtown as well. So.
And, obviously, in addition, Charleston County received support for corridor improvements to Main Road between Savannah Highway and River Road, which were a primary component of the citywide transportation plan that the Charleston City Council passed in August of 2018. What type of financial support did your district receive?
For the out in 17?
Oh, yes, sir, for that, for the improvements, as well as citywide, yeah.
I don't know, because my part of my district is a little bit on 17 in Avondale, but then most of it's over in Asheville and Maryville. So, okay. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to try to, tell you that I have an answer. I would probably direct you to Councilman Appel or Councilman Shahid or Harry or Councilman Griffin, who are out in West Ashley. But I can certainly get back to you with an answer on that one. I don't know specifically for my district, because my district is a little bit carved out out in West Ashley.
Yes, sir. And let me turn over to, obviously, the budget shortfall. As you know, there's a $40 million budget shortfall with $12 million lost in park revenue and not parking revenue and $19 million in tourism. Quick question: why is this city still functioning?
You're saying why or how?
Why? With the budget shortfall.
We have a budget meeting scheduled tomorrow, actually, a budget call, just as an update. I do know that we've had significant reductions in our, hospitality tax, our parking meters, significant. Some of that was by the state, pre-COVID, just as COVID started to happen, they gave small business owners a reprieve on the accommodations and hospitality tax. So that really, put a break on all the incoming money that we would have. Luckily, on the property tax side, that was finalized. It's my understanding, sometime before March. So we had a good understanding of what we were getting from the property tax side, and those numbers didn't change a whole lot. But certainly we are facing a shortfall and deficit. But I will have more answers tomorrow once we meet as a council on the budget meeting to discuss kind of moving forward. But make no mistake, we're going to have to make some priority changes, some adjustments to the budget. But I hope to work with other city council members to determine, what needs to be cut, what doesn't. But we haven't had those discussions yet.
Let Talk to you about a couple of things. Hiring freeze. How long should that hiring freeze continue in your mind, Councilman?
Well, I mean, that has to continue as long as we're in the stature where we're facing a significant budget deficit. I would defer to our folks in HR and our chief financial officer on how long, but I think whatever we have to do right now to maintain the proper health from a financial standpoint, we have to do. At the same time, that has to be balanced with the needs in the community. So, for example, we met with our Office of Stormwater Director, Matt Fountain, and some of my constituents a couple weeks ago to discuss the flooding. One of the issues that we brought up was, just in terms of personnel and being staffed properly. There are certain levels that we have to maintain, even if there's a hiring freeze, because what we don't want is to negatively affect public services. So that's not only for stormwater, but that goes for our fire and our police. So there are certain areas where I would hold strong that, although we would have to implement a hiring freeze, I would be least likely to support a long-term hiring freeze, in particular with our public service folks on the fire and police side.
And Councilman, let me ask you this, because from my reading from Channel 5's website, it says that the city did save some money, obviously, in some areas during the lockdown. What exactly are those areas?
I didn't see that. I didn't see that story, Quintin.
Well, no worries. No worries.
Yeah, I didn't see that story. Obviously, with the lack of buildings being open and staff at home, right. I'm just taking a conjecture and a guess here. We've got less travel, less mileage reimbursements for staff. A lot of staff are working at home. My assumption is that your utility costs are down for a variety of ways. So, I mean, those are initially my initial thoughts on, how the city saw reductions.
Yes, sir. And, obviously there's always talk about cutting back on non-essentials. What non-essentials in the city should be cut back right now in your mind?
Well, the non-essentials that, and again, I would defer to my fellow city council members, but I would say that the non-essentials would be, fire, our police force. We have to make sure that they're up to complement and able to serve our community. Right now, I'd say our stormwater and planning department, we need to make sure that those folks are fully staffed, because, we think about it this way: when you're a small business owner or you're a homeowner and you're putting a permit through the city and you're trying to move things along, the last thing we want to do is halt the process, because really what that does is it negatively affects our contractors, negatively affects the other small business owners. So as long as we can keep, the process flowing, and whatever we have to do to keep the process flowing, to make sure that commerce continues to happen, we need to do that. So non-essential for me, that's a subjective question. There's probably several things. I would be open to looking at any kind of contracts, third-party contracts that we have extended out to third-party vendors to do any consulting work with us over the next year. Maybe rethinking those contracts right now and reprioritizing that money. That would be one way that I would say that we can rethink that. I would look at any other additional hires that we've already hired and figure out if those positions are needed. But again, I would focus solely on our public safety, fire and police, and then look at our folks then, like traffic and transportation, planning, and stormwater. I mean, those are the things that people, for the most part, you've got parking issues, you've got storm and flood. I mean, those are the things that people really look to their local city officials on for the most part. And then we've got, everything that's going on with COVID.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And if you were to cut back on some of those non-essential programs, obviously we need police, fire, and planning. Right. But other non-essential programs, where would you, as far as you just mentioned, reprieve that money from?
Well, I mean, at this point, we're gonna, like I said, tomorrow we are gonna have a budget meeting. Well, my goal is that the administration is going to provide us some recommendations as council. I certainly have some thoughts, and I've articulated to you just now, but
yes, sir.
They will provide some recommendations to us. I really rely on our chief financial officer, Amy Wharton, and the mayor to basically provide recommendations so council members have a discussion and the information. I think it's premature for me to basically be in an interview and suggest cuts to one department or the other until I see the full picture, and I will have a bigger picture tomorrow.
Will any incentives given to developers be cut back in your mind?
Any incentives?
Yes, sir.
Well, in my mind, I think we need to make it easier for developers to develop, particularly the affordable housing units. So, I can separate this in two arguments.
Okay.
We've got several, planning and zoning laws on the books that do not make it easy or financially feasible for a developer to come in and build affordable housing units. So I don't want to do anything to rock that boat or mitigate any kind of progress we made on that side. And in fact, I think we should be removing some barriers for them in developing affordable housing, because that is a key issue for me and it's a key issue for other city council members. But I do want to pivot maybe a little bit. The mayor has actually asked myself and Councilman Gregory to be co-chairs of this special commission, and I'm not sure if are you aware of that, Quintin? So that special commission is really focused on looking at racial justice, racial equity, and conciliation for the entire region or entire city, but also internally as a city and how we operate. The reason I mention that is really the main reason is we are going to be looking at not just external policies that are out in the public, but internal policies around our housing and permitting and zoning. We're going to have a whole subcommittee focused on housing and mobility that's going to be looking at some of these things. So when we talk about affordable housing, we need to really ask the question, does the structure, does the permitting process, does the system that we currently have support affordable housing, and does that affordable housing structure that we have, is that supporting the most needy in our community? And downtown Charleston, oftentimes those that are of color are the most needy that we have, and what is happening to them, and how are we exacerbating the housing issue if we're not fixing kind of like the planning and zoning rules around it. So the reason I mention that is, part of this commission, we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at some of our issues around criminal justice reform, as well as some issues around economic opportunity and small business. How are we making sure that minority and women-owned businesses have a leg up and can come into the city and open a business and have everything that they need at their disposal, just like any other person would. So that means access to capital, resources to actually apply for the loans. So I don't want to pivot too much, but I just want to make sure that was added into the conversation.
Sure. And let me get back to the budget, because I'm wondering this, Sakran, what tab will the taxpayers pick up for this budget shortfall?
I don't know yet. So, I mean, we have limited abilities to, levy taxes. So we can't exactly, I guess we could potentially increase property taxes, but the accommodations and the hospitality tax, it's my understanding that we collect that here locally, and that goes to the state, and the state basically gives that back to us in some capacity. I've had conversations with a lot of small business owners, and I'm one of them, right, asking questions about, we pay a, 2% accommodations tax. Where does that money go? And how is that supporting local small businesses here in Charleston? And I'm not talking about big business. I'm talking about the mom and pop businesses that we have in Charleston, often owned by women and minorities. How are we supporting those businesses? And, that 2%, that adds up. Some accounts, that's well over $15 million a year that ends up coming back to Charleston. How does that get dispersed? So I know that didn't answer your question, but we have limited basically abilities to raise taxes. I guess property tax, we could see increases in other funds for our sewer funds. But again, tomorrow I'll have a better idea of what the strategy is moving forward.
And I know this might be another redundant question.
All right, no, it's all right.
But how will Charleston City Council how will the Charleston City Council balance the budget with a shortfall?
Well, I don't know what we have in our rainy day fund and our contingency fund. I don't know that at this point. Like I said, and I'm not trying to punt this, but I will know much more tomorrow. Myself and several other council members had asked, a couple months back, and I just want to say that the mayor and our CFO, Amy Wharton, have done a good job of getting us to this point of having a strategy to move forward. Again, but I'll know more tomorrow when they share kind of the budget numbers, and I would encourage you to either attend or follow up. I'm sure that will be public at some point. So I don't know what the process is. This is my first time on city council, and this is my first time ever working in a place where we've got a significant shortfall. But I will say, things will have to get cut. We're going to make some tough decisions. There's no way we can fund all the priorities that we had funded and made commitments to. So, I know it's not popular, but we're going to have to make some tough decisions, and some things will get cut.
Let me turn to the John C. Calhoun statue.
Sure.
Was Charleston City Council, that is, ever given a blueprint on how the statue was going to be taken down?
What do you mean a blueprint?
Did you all get any ideas or any plans from the mayors on how they're going to take down the statue?
Like physically take it down, or when? Yeah, I mean, I was consulted with the mayor, and I'm sure the mayor consulted with other city council members. You know, as part of this commission that I'm on with Councilman Gregory,
Right.
one of the subcommittees is a history and culture commission, which will be discussing all of these monuments and other things here in Charleston. When he had first asked me to, you know, what my opinion was, you know, I'm supportive of it. I'm supportive of the relocation of it. I made my opinion clear to him that, you know, we should make sure that first and foremost that it's relocated and to put it into a place of education, or a place where it could be, you know, regarded and looked at and studied in the proper context. So I was supportive of it. I didn't lose any sleep on that vote. I just want to let folks know, and I know that probably will upset a lot of folks. In my mind, when I look at my constituents and I look at myself, and the question I really just asked myself at the end of the day was, you know, if I have a large portion of my constituency and of my constituency that's upset that statue or monument is here in Charleston and what it represents, and they feel that it represents a part of history that subjugated, it was racist and instilled the violence and white supremacy, how in good conscience could I not vote yes on that? Because it's just a statue. It's just a piece of rock. At the end of the day, my job is to represent all of my constituents, all of Charleston, regardless of where they live. And it's the people I represent. I'm not representing monuments and statues. I'm representing people. And they have feelings and they have concerns, and those concerns have to be heard.
You're in the education field. Where exactly should this monument be relocated?
I mean, I do think there's certainly a historical significance. You know, John C. Calhoun was the vice president of the United States. Certainly, you know, he espoused white supremacy, but there are probably certain parts of his history that, you know, weren't so negative. You know, the totality of the man can't be measured just by his feeling on slavery. Even though I disagree with it, even though I think it's dreadful, even though he espoused white supremacy, I think it's put it in proper context. A museum, just like we did with the Confederate flag, you know, that should be placed in a museum. I had a lot of folks ask me to, you know, destroy it, remove it. And I think first and foremost, I think we need to understand that, you know, that's part of our history, and we need to learn from our history and have a conversation about it, and remove it from a place where folks felt uncomfortable. And I get that completely. And I personally understand that.
Speaking of removal, reportedly the company was obviously selected to take down the Calhoun statue, the column, the plaques, and lettering. Is that price tag in your mind near $100,000?
I don't know what the exact cost is, but it's my understanding that the mayor had mentioned to me, and I'm not sure if this is public or it's been confirmed, but I believe that the city has received some financial donations or contributions to help offset some of those costs. So you may want to check with the mayor's office or our chief financial officer on that, but I'm pretty sure that the city has actually received some contributions to help offset those costs.
And did City Council, by your chance, Sakran, have a say in what company was going to be selected?
No, I was not asked about that. I'm not sure if that was brought through a subcommittee, or that I'm not on that. I'm not sure if there's, I was not asked. Like I said, it could have been brought through a subcommittee. I don't sit on any subcommittee that I think would have any kind of contracts or procurement. I'm on public safety and community development. So.
Right. And you talk about obviously potential private donations, obviously is set aside to take down the statue. What will be the price tag that is for taxpayers?
My hope is that there's no price for the taxpayers. Nothing is, you know, incurred by the taxpayers to do it. But if there is, I hope it's minimal, and, you know, the city is prepared to you know, pay for that. But again, it's my understanding that a lot of those costs were offset by contributions. I just don't know how much.
Now, was the John C. Calhoun statue a part of the emergency capital project for the city?
The emergency capital project?
Yes, sir. Was it an emergency capital project? Did he tell you about emergency capital project?
No, I was not informed of that.
Okay.
You mean when it was erected or when it was taken down?
Taken down. Was that a part of some sort of emergency capital project or something?
Not that I'm aware of, Quintin.
Okay. Now, okay. Well, let me ask you this: Why did the mayor take down a Calhoun statue when the city is involved with a budget shortfall?
Well, again, if there's a major cost to removing that statue, that's certainly worthy of a conversation. But I don't know what the cost would be. But I guess you weigh the cost versus the feelings and sentiment of those in the community. And like I said, I didn't lose much sleep. This is an easy vote for me. I understand the significance and the symbolism of it, and it's important that it get removed and relocated. And if there's a cost to that, I'd be willing to support that. But I'm glad that our generous folks in the city of Charleston have come out and helped offset some of those costs.
Will that cost be tourism?
You mean coming from the tourism dollars, or who's supporting it?
Oh, as far as removing the statue, will that hurt tourism?
No, I don't think it will hurt tourism.
Okay.
I mean, the city of Charleston is a city rich in history. I mean, this is one statue, and my fellow council member Ross Appel really articulated a great position and a great kind of sentiment that I feel, and so did Kevin Shealy, Councilmember Shealy, on the evening that we voted.
Right.
This is a slippery slope, and I make no mistake, I understand the need to relocate the John C. Calhoun statue. I think any other statue or name changes should be brought through our history and culture subcommittee that's working on this special commission. It does deserve a public conversation, and I encourage anyone, not just those that are in favor of removing the statue, but those that are opposed to it, to be involved in that conversation. And that's the type of leader that I am. I'm not just looking for folks that are going to agree with me on every issue. I think it's important we have differing viewpoints. So anyone watching this that's really interested in participating on this special commission, we will be announcing an open period for folks to suggest and put their name in for consideration for this commission. So I guess my point is that we need differing viewpoints, and the Calhoun statue was just one statue that removed. But it is a slippery slope, and I want to make sure that anything else we do, we really should have a discussion as a community.
Now, you talk about discussion. Should that discussion been brought to the public first before you all voted on it?
Well, again, it's my understanding that this discussion was in front of City Council 2 years ago. I'm not sure. I wasn't here. Obviously, I wasn't elected. I don't know what the result of that discussion or that vote was. But before I made my decision, I certainly weighed in and talked with other city council members. I received several emails from my constituents. At the end of the day, Quintin, all I can do is represent my constituency. So the District 3 constituency is, it's a very diverse, it's probably one of the most diverse districts we have in the city of Charleston. I've got an awesome group of constituents out in Ashleyville and Maryville and West Ashley and the Avondale area. I've got awesome folks downtown at Wagner Terrace and North Central, and Hampton Park Terrace and Elliotboro, Cannonboro. And we're diverse. We're not just diverse in race, but we're diverse in age. So, it's my responsibility to represent them. And it was clear based on their feelings and their sentiment that they were supportive, and I'm supportive of relocating the Calhoun statue.
Now, did the company hired by the city, did that happen before the city council vote or afterwards?
I don't know. My guess, this is just conjecture. My guess is that we probably had to call them ahead of time to arrange for it, because, after that vote that evening, it's my understanding that the contractor and the crane were there that evening at midnight. So, yeah, something had to be prearranged, but that's all I know. I don't know when they were contacted or what date. I do know, I will say, the mayor called me prior to the vote, asked where my feelings were. And I appreciate he reached out to me. So,
let me turn to the Mask Ordinance. Obviously, that went into effect last week. How effective has that been, say, on King Street?
Well, not very. To be honest with you, I've talked to several small business owners, and I've seen it for myself. And I'm glad you asked this question because I'm getting a lot of emails and I'm getting pinged on Facebook basically suggesting that the city's not doing enough right now, and the numbers are spiking. So I'm glad I have this opportunity to kind of explain. I do not think we're doing enough to enforce the mask ordinance. I do not think we're doing enough to enforce what's going on inside some of our restaurants and bars. But at the same time, the restaurants and bars have done everything they could and have bent over backwards to adhere to the guidelines that we've provided them. They closed down for several weeks. Many of them have lost thousands and thousands of dollars in revenues. And I understand that that's just one piece of this. Certainly the health and safety of our citizens is my priority. But my point is, they've bent over backwards. And I firmly believe, if we work on the mask ordinance and enforce it at a more stringent rate and actually fine folks, as well as working on indoor capacity at some of the restaurants. Just this Friday night, we are going to be taking a walk on King Street, looking at some of the businesses, because I've had these discussions with some small business owners, and they've said, there's basically a demographic thing too, Quintin. It's a lot of the 20 and 30-year-olds coming in and, not observing social distancing. So we need to put that back onto the owners to make sure that they're doing it. And then I would say, we have to provide a fine, and we have to make sure that fine is levied at a rate that's going to really make it difficult not to ignore what's going on, because health and safety is first and foremost. But we don't want to just take a sledgehammer to this and close businesses down completely for a long duration. Now, I will caveat this. If the state decided to do that, or we took a regional approach where Berkeley, Dorchester, and all of Charleston decided to close down for the month, I would be supportive of that. And here's why. Because if you do it that way, it's consistent and it's a regional approach. What I don't want to do is just close down the city of Charleston, because as we know, it's easy to drive across to Mount Pleasant or North Charleston or go to Folly Beach or Sullivan's Island. Those folks are still going to go there, and the transmission rates and the COVID positive tests are still going to go up. So unless we take a regional approach to this, I would not be in favor of just simply closing down businesses. I think we have to take a more of a scalpel to this and basically work with the business owners and make sure that we can get folks social distance, make sure the mask ordinance is really enforced, and levy some fines on small business owners that are not adhering to the policies. And again, I would be for it if we can do a regional approach, but I don't see how Dorchester and Berkeley County are going to jump on board. I mean, we've got issues just with Mount Pleasant replicating what we're doing in North Charleston. So as a business owner, I will say, it's very difficult. You feel like you're being punished because business will just simply go somewhere else from a money standpoint, and from a health and safety standpoint, that's not going to reduce any transmissions, because those folks still live and breathe and work downtown. They're still living, going to places in Mount Pleasant and North Charleston. So it's not going to do anything, in my opinion, from a health and safety perspective, if we just close down just City of Charleston businesses.
Was that language?
At this point, Quintin, at this point.
Yes, sir. At this point.
Yeah.
Okay, when you go back to that ordinance, was the ordinance written in a more, clear point? Was it, was the language difficult?
No, and it's not. And the mayor said, and Dan Riccio, who's our director of livability, said on the call that our goal for this mask ordinance, at least the first rollout of that, is really education and giving folks a warning. I think the public, and I think quite honestly many business owners, want us to take a more active and forceful role on this. So when we do meet on Tuesday next week, I've already shared this with the mayor. I think we do need to take a more active and punitive measures on the mask ordinance. I don't think the language was gray and not detailed. I think our approach on this was a little, not wishy-washy, but we wanted to educate and warn people. We didn't want to come across with a heavy hammer and create fines. But I do think what I'm hearing from the public and from business owners, to be honest with you, is we need a little bit more of a hefty hand on the enforcement side.
How hefty should that fine be then?
Well, it needs to get the attention of a small business owner. And again, as a small business owner, if I get a $50 fine or $100 to $200 fine, that's not a whole lot when I've got a bar full of people. So if we're going to fine folks, we really need to fine them, and it needs to be hefty. So thousands, because this is health and safety, and I think business owners want to do the right thing. most do. We do have some that still are, playing loose and goose on this, but I think most want to do the right thing. And it's unfortunate because we've got a lot of good business owners in the city of Charleston that are trying to do the right thing. But when they hear stories of other business owners, having late night music way past the normal time, not having any social distancing, folks walk in, no one's wearing a mask, way over capacity, that sends the wrong message. And that starts to create a ripple effect because first it starts with a few, and as small business owners hear about that, they say, okay, well, we'll do a band on Friday and Saturday night, and we're going to, edge up our capacity, because ultimately it comes down to money, which is, they're a small business, but we got to do better as a city to make sure that they're held accountable, and make sure that we support and also highlight the businesses that are doing this the right way, because there's several businesses out there that I've spoken with that are doing the right thing.
Councilman Jason Sakran, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, thanks, Quintin. I'm looking forward to joining you again. Maybe we'll do this in person.
Oh, I'm here. I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it.
We'll do it in person next time.
Sure.
But I appreciate you reaching out to me.
Yeah, anytime. You're welcome.
All right. You all have a